Welcome everybody to our inaugural Evolve show for entrepreneurs. Now I'm super excited because I'm here with Louise Fowler, and Louise Fowler and I have been working on a project for the last 3 to 4 months in another business, which we're going to talk about soon. But before we get into it, I'm just going to introduce you a little bit, Louise, to the audience, and I'm going to be asking you. You've been interviewing me for a little while, digging into my expertise. Tables are turned. And just say a quick hi anyway, Louise.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Evolve Show. It's just so wonderful to have you here with Perry and I right from the very beginning. And yeah, I'm just excited. We just don't know where this is going to lead, and we're just having fun with this and evolving with everybody else.
Great. And just so everyone knows, I don't send anyone questions. We've got people on the show, I'm not telling them what we're doing because we want spontaneity, Louise and I, and we find that is the best way to run these types of shows, because when you ask a person a question, they've got to dig deep and come up with an answer. So it's usually spontaneous and not thought out, and we prefer it that way. But just quickly before we kick off, I just want to say that, obviously, new show, Evolve show. Many of you that will end up watching this know I've run shows for years and podcasts for years. So why this one? And I just want to quickly touch base with that. Over this whole COVID period, I've been going through a reset. Now, interesting, because another business that I'm involved with Louise is called the Reset Revolution, which we're going to be talking about soon. But with the reset that I went through, I sort of looked at my life and I went, I go and teach all this business stuff. And for those of you that don't know, I've built a whole bunch of IP that helps business owners build themselves out of their business, which is fairly easy to do, to be honest, once you know what you're doing. And it's all about the team that you put in place, systems you put in place, the way you have to work on your mind, because if you want a business to run independently of you, you've got to deal with all your trust issues, right? You can't be a control freak. You put good team in and you let them run your business for you. You let them build your business for you, and you get good people. At the same time, I do all the patterning work, but oftentimes they're separate. They're just separate things. And also, I've been a studier of consciousness for many years on an academic level, as well as an experiential level as a 30-something year meditator, and who also grew up in the martial art traditions of Qigong, Tai Chi, and all those contemplative traditions. And I just wanted to put it all together and not be hemmed in, because other things I've done, Lou, I've been hemmed in. I'm just teaching about this. And just quickly before we kick off, and this, our personal state of consciousness creates. So it's just as important to know all the technical things you need to do to build a successful business as it is to be evolving yourself constantly, right?
Yeah.
Hence the name Evolve. Now, Louise.
And I love the name of the show that you've come up with, Perry, because I really relate to that, because I know from where I was, and I think everyone can relate, where we were 20 years ago. You think about the person you've evolved to today, and even where we were 10 years ago or 5 years ago. And it's that growth, isn't it? And that's that evolution. And the more that we can really just get into that beautiful slipstream of evolution, that's when the magic really happens. And that's what I love about the work that you've always done, Perry, and you're the best in the world at it. And really helping people to get into that slipstream of evolution and really understanding, becoming conscious in the way that we're doing things. And it does make a huge, huge difference.
And a lot of that's got to do with undoing the ego and undoing the past and allowing yourself to connect to the creativity, which we're not going to fully go into today, but most people get a sense of that, and they've been around this work for a bit, because I want to go work with you a little bit. So this whole reset thing, you're building a second business around reset, aren't you?
Yes, it's a second business.
Yeah, why?
Why? That's a big question. And actually, it's a very exciting question. And my first business, which I just, I love, and it's been amazing for me. And I've been building that for 10 to 12 years. And it's an online business. And in that time, it really exploded. But what happened was, inside that business as well is where I went through burnout. And that's not because of the business or people in that sense. It's because of my own dysfunctions within that. So, Perry, the name that I've called myself for a little while now has been this self-confessed, recovering, dysfunctional high achiever. But I'm kind of getting to that stage where I'm a self-confessed, recovered, dysfunctional achiever, and getting into that functional side. So the reset business, and more than ever, we need to reset, is the book for a start, Your Reset Revolution, is my journey of all of those signposts that I ignored. And then the eventual crash, but then it shows how I came through that. So really the coming through of that, the whole comeback of that, and that evolutionary process is basically, which is what reset is. It's an evolution, is what reset's about. It's about being able to reset to a life that really matches you now. And that's what I'm loving with the work we're doing, the courses we're doing, the shows, everything is really helping people to reset. And that's my passion. So I still very much have my other online business, and this is very much another level of purpose and another level of evolution, because I didn't feel that, how could I go through such an experience like that and be an entrepreneur and not share how the heck I got out of it? Like, that would just be wrong.
Yeah, just for those that listening or watching, whether you're watching live or the replay, Lou has had a hugely successful business in the other business, the online business she's talking about. We're gonna sort of dig into some of the reasons that she became so successful at it, and it's a really interesting story, I think, too, because she was a single mum, and I've known Lou for years. She's been one of my clients. So I know her backstory, and I just think so highly of Lou, and even why she decided to become a super successful entrepreneur, which was all to do with her son, but we'll get into that in a second. When Lou talks about this, being burnt out, well, it was extreme. It was almost like close to death stuff.
It was.
Yeah. And
Sorry. You're right, Perry. There were moments there. There were a lot of times actually where I thought, am I actually going to get out of this? Like, I didn't know that I would actually come through this, and that's where I started to get that growth and think, well, I'm going to have to consciously get myself out of this. Yeah, and that's a lot of training. Yes, the training through yourself that, and just experience that was able to help me come through it.
Yeah. So everyone listening or watching this, like, patterns, whatever your patterns are, right? So patterns are your belief structures associated with emotions that become a habit. And they're actually they're part of your psyche. So they belong to a subpersonality, which is a part of your psyche. These parts within our psyche just run our behaviors on this sort of robotic, habitual way. And you could hear Lou say being conscious. So being conscious means not letting these parts with these habitual belief systems just drive us. Instead, inspecting them and working out what's functional and dysfunctional. But I think what we'll do here with this, and by the way, everybody, we're building out some courses in behind what Lou's doing, because as you'll soon see, resetting yourself is one of the most important and invaluable skills that you can use. You'll use it many times in your life to reshape your life, to come out a different person. So when things aren't fresh, when they're stale, when they're dead, when they're old, you use a reset process to find out what is next. I mean, the show is part of that for me, right? What is next? But Lou, you said that there were signs. So you were probably operating unconsciously, building a massively successful business. working really hard. And, you know, in that, can you see that there's ways of building a business where you don't work so hard, right? Where you don't burn it?
Absolutely. Yeah. And something that just came to mind when you were saying that, Perry, something that was quite dangerous, really, when I look back on it, I know we've discussed it a few times, is that in that unconscious part of the psyche, there's that bit that if you're not stressed out and you're not hustling, you know, full on hustling and missing out on sleep and really going for it, if you're not really doing that, then you're not really successful. And when I look back, I feel that there was that aspect of it, so that when the signs were kind of popping up around in my life and I was experiencing them, to me, I just thought, oh, this just comes with the territory. I must be doing really well. Like, that is dysfunctional.
Oh, no, that's totally. And by the way, Lou, I always think of that as there's two things I want to share with you. I've got a client who I'm taking through a particular process at the moment, dealing with that. But it's the John Wayne. It's like almost that John Wayne. I'm going to persevere. I'm just going to work real hard. And you're right. So I've seen that with a lot of people. I remember years ago, quickly tell you the story, where there was myself, Silvano Gabbani, a gentleman called Talesh, and we were all successful entrepreneurs at the time. And when I say at the time, a few of them have been through some big ups and downs since then. But we didn't have to work lots, and there was lots of money flying. We used to go out for these big lunches, Lou, and you know, we'd be sitting there and drinking the wines, and it's really interesting because these guys didn't come; they weren't from Australia. And, you know, I suppose their belief system, which was the same as mine, is, look, I've been smart, so I've been able to manage to get these businesses to run and make this money without having to work all the time. So we're going to go and have fun, right? Yes. And so we'd have these 3 or 4 hour lunches. And in these lunches, I grew more as an entrepreneur than I would if I was working hard, because they were other entrepreneurs, Tilesh and Savannah, would just sit around joking and drinking and talking. And
which is great. A lot of energy within there, lots of ideas. It's very natural.
Correct. Anyway, one of the things I learned then was everyone, even my clients that could do that, they wouldn't, because of what you're talking about. Somehow people feel guilty in Australia or New Zealand or America or England and so these modern Western countries, if you're not slaving it away for 14 hours a week. And that becomes an unconscious script for people, where their sense of value comes from working hard. More than achieving the result. And so we're hardwired. And of course, that was really beneficial for the capitalistic system to hardwire people to work really long hours and feel really good about working hard, because then you've got machines for the factories and the corporations. But anyway, I want to dig into you a little bit more. Right?
But I think a big part, sorry, Perry, for a second there, a part of that is we're trying to prove to ourselves that we deserve that success. Because how often, and I can think of it, people go, oh my gosh, you've just been so successful. And I go, oh, thank you very much. And then I could remember myself saying, yes, but I worked really hard for it. Like, I'd have to justify the success with that so that I was deserving of it. And rather than just accept, you know, the lovely praise and lovely things people had to say.
There is I'm diverting from where I want to go, but this is so interesting, right? Because there is.
You never know where I'm going to take you, Perry.
No, that's right. There's a pattern, and this is hard to explain to people. So we live in a world where we're taught. You know, the way we're taught when we're brought up is, if you do this, you're a good person, right? And if you do this, you're a shameful person. And if you're a good person, you get these rewards. And if I break this straight down into metaphors or things that people easily understand, I remember my parents telling me, if you're a good boy, you'll get this at Christmas. Father Christmas will bring this. At Easter, if you're a good boy, right, you're going to get, and let's just go to the ultimate. If you're a good boy, you'll get to heaven when you die. Now, if you're a bad boy, you're going to go to hell. So, and if you're a bad boy, you're not going to get any Christmas presents. So you can see there is a metaphoric structure within the psyche where we internalize that, and we're always trying to work out whether we deserve or don't deserve. And most people have low self-worth and shame deep in their unconscious that they aren't aware of, or other people are aware of it because they feel it. And so the more low self-worth, the more shame one has. And John DeMartini used to talk about this. The more you're trying to compensate by working harder, trying to be something, so then you feel like you can deserve. Now, there's a whole other state. If you meet someone that's glowing, who's genuinely in love with themselves. Now, if you're genuinely in love with yourself, you accept yourself, you've forgiven self, you just feel like you deserve just for being, right?
Yes.
And that's a state that I think and feel is a great state to aim for, because you just feel inside of yourself that you deserve, that you're good enough as you are to deserve whatever. And just quickly, I didn't plan to go here, but Louise is taking me sideways. These things are important because we're not talking about technical aspects of building business, but your psyche itself attracts and creates. So if you're walking around trying to prove to yourself that you're good enough, you'll work really, really hard. That's the script. Where potentially if you walk around and you're okay with yourself and you believe you deserve, you're not going to work so hard. Things will come to you. Things will be easier for you. And just quickly, I know that Lou and I, because we talk about this, we try to build business from what I call the feminine side. So the feminine side, and I'll just give my description of that, is the opposite is what Lou talked before about working really hard, stressing as though that means you're achieving. That means you've got a driver subpersonality. Your driver subpersonality is always pushing you to do more, to be more, and then you've got your achiever saying you need to achieve more and more and more. Well, all these put you into a stress stance versus trying to relax. Be very relaxed, stress-free, intuit what's next, intuit what's the best thing to do, to move differently, which means you're not carrying that stress in the same way. And you're also engaging deeper areas of the brain, because when you do that, you're dropping your brain from from beta down to alpha into theta. This is why you get those inspirational ideas, and I know that happens to you, Louise, because you try to run your business. Yeah. Your business in the same way now since burnout.
Yeah, I do try to run. Well, I do run it from more inspiration than ever before, and then once I have that inspiration, then I put the logic to it. Then I'm able to implement it. I use the brain more to implement it, but I like to use that side of me that is more inspirational. And what you were saying, that when we say from that feminine aspect of who we are, is that when we're in the hustle and we miss things. When we're stressed, we miss things. We miss health signs. We miss business things. We miss opportunities because we don't see them. And that's what I've found, is that by working in that feminine aspect and working more with intuition, being more conscious, and like you say, have that meditation practice, walking, spend a lot of time in nature. That's how I bring that feminine aspect in. So I feel quite settled, and therefore my mind, I make better decisions. I make great decisions. And we talk about having to work, and sometimes I think we get ourselves in these loops where we make decisions which make the work harder anyway. Whereas if we really sat back and thought about things, or just relaxed, went for a nice walk, by the time you come back in half an hour or so, the right idea will pop. And that's how I like to do it now. So it's better decision making, I feel, Perry. For me,
and what do you have to do personally? Like, let's give the listeners and viewers some really good info here. What do you have to do to get your mind in that state where you're getting the inspiration, you're getting the intuitive insight? What do you have to do?
For me, I plan my days out quite well, and the number one thing for me is sleep. I make sure I get that 8 to 9 hours, preferably 9 hours for me. and that really helps to set me up for the day. I like to do meditation. I like to journal, and I've stopped. The thing I had to stop was waking up and looking at the phone, or getting straight up out of bed and straight to emails. Like, that's just so detrimental to the brain and your intuition. And so I set strong intentions in the morning, and I just go from there. I find then what I need to do and what's planned out from the day before. And sometimes it doesn't turn out exactly the way I thought it might, but because I've got such a strong structure, it's strong and it's buoyant, but it's also flexible. Like, it can move.
Yeah, it's really interesting what you're saying, because you're almost saying the opposite of what all the productivity people wants to see. And I'm the same as you. I don't get straight up into things for the same reason. I'm trying to utilize greater powers in my mind. Now, just quick, I want to go to the science for this, everyone watching. What Louise is talking about now has been monitored through brain science. So what she's doing by being in nature, by meditating, by journaling, well, first of all, by lowering her brain waves, what happens is the left and right hemispheres of the brain start to synchronize. And so what you've got is a merging of logic and unconscious processing. So logic and creativity. And this is called implicit learning. And in implicit learning, the unconscious gives you information, okay? And it's far faster than logic. Then you apply logic to it. You heard Louise say that. Just so you know, I use the same process. This is the journal and writing things down. It's always going on, because my unconscious will give me way better information about business than my logic will, especially if I've got emotions going on. Now, quickly, Louise, I just want to dig into another couple of questions, not about what you're doing now, because everyone's going to learn a lot about what you're doing over the next little while, because you and I will be doing a couple of shows together. You produce phenomenal success in your online business, and you first started that, if I remember rightly, because you were a single mum, broke.
Yes.
And you wanted to bring Ryan up in a really good lifestyle. Can you share a little bit about that, what your why was?
Well, I'd been living overseas in the UK. I'd been working over there for a whole decade. And when I came back, I was divorced. So after 10 years, I had to basically start all over again. No one knew me. I felt a bit like Bridget Jones, really. I was just like, nobody knew me. And I had this English accent, and my son had an English accent, but I was Australian. So I was feeling quite lost at that time. But I just had to, I wanted to get my life on track. And then for me, like having a young son, I wanted to make sure I could give him a great life. I brought him into this world, and I just felt that's my responsibility, and I want to give him the best I possibly can. And that was a part of my dream. So that's when I felt, well, I don't want to go into a job that's not going to get me where I want, because I've been there. I've done the corporate side of things when I was over in England. And I thought I need to do something for me, and something that was limitless, something that didn't have, this ceiling there, and I could just really be me in it. And that's when I chose to have my own business.
Why was it important for it to be you? Like, you used the words, be you. And it was important that it was me. What does that mean?
I think if I was to put it in a nutshell, it would be, I just wanted control back in my life. I didn't want to be controlled anymore. And
like in corporate life.
In corporate life. And I was always very creative, and I was always coming up with a lot of great ideas, and I think that entrepreneurial spirit, it's always been there for me. And it was time for me to trust myself to be able to put my own ideas out there into the world. And it kind of went from there. But
by the way, I can't help but do this, because there's a metaphor, even as you communicate. That creative spirit broke the eggshell of your ego, you see? Like
did.
before that, when you're working for other people, you're dishonoring, and you are, I've known you for years, you're a pure entrepreneur. But when you were working for others, you would have been pushing that down constantly. And
Yes.
when you suddenly went, well, I'm going to do something I want to do because I want to be controlled, and then you allow that energy and that force, okay, out. Interesting, because in COVID, I'll just share this with everyone here. In COVID, I had a very interesting experience because for probably about a month, I still did business stuff, but I put it aside and I had to do a whole bunch of stuff with clients. But one of the things that was very interesting for me, I could almost feel flat or depressed, which is not my normal style as a human being. And I realized, because all this energy that I usually have as an entrepreneur and a human being couldn't be expressed outward. And I had to put brakes on because of the situation I was in. So similar to that's why I had that metaphor for you before, that when you went into that, you're tapping into that energy that's yours. And by the way, were you scared? By the way, were you terrified when you started your business? Were you broke and you right?
I was terrified to a certain degree, but there was also the element of freedom in it. And I tried to focus more on the possibilities of where this could take me rather than where I'd just been. And it's something that I've done for a long time, is be able to look at possibilities. And that's where you can be very creative in there. So
can I ask you a question, Louise? By possibilities, do you mean instead of like, I work with clients, and most people are like this, by the way, like most people, sadly. They've already decided about life. They've already decided about what's possible. This is what belief systems do. So belief systems stop potentials. What I'm hearing you say is you weren't looking at your belief systems, you weren't looking at the past, you were just looking at possibilities and potentials.
Yes.
So,
yeah. I just knew there was more, and I wanted to follow that and investigate that and trust it.
Interesting. So that's evolution. So you hop into the stream of entrepreneurship and you're trusting that, and that starts taking a direction. A question for you: how? I know you build a multi-million-dollar business from your kitchen. I like saying that. Kitchen table.
Actually, yeah.
What's that?
And I was in that kitchen, and I actually rented a place at first, and I had to use Ryan's bedroom, and I used to sit up all night and work, and he'd have to go and sleep somewhere else because that was the only place I could fit a desk. And so I used to work between the kitchen and there because he'd want to watch some television, and he had to make his own lunch and do his own things, and he played a very big part in that. He was only 11 at the time.
Great story, right? Just great story. You're digging into particulars that, I didn't know that you had a rough time.
Yes.
But when you explain that, this is real crisis to hero stuff, because people on the hero crash and with your health and what have you. But that's an amazing story, and I'm sure that a lot of ladies watching this and men will be inspired by that. And I think it's beautiful, because you started out for the love of your son, and then you became a world leader in your business. Just another question around that. What is it about you? What characteristics is it about Lou Fowler that made her become so successful in that business? What do you think that is?
What that is? Wow, that's a good question.
I told you I was going to let you prepare. Look at squirm people, right?
No,
and now this is an interesting one, right? Because, I wanted to do this because you now I've got to stop you for a second. You keep pondering.
Yes.
Lou is a very humble person, people. Very humble, okay? And so right now, she's not used to thinking about herself in these terms. Good. So what do you reckon?
I just think life is for living, and you got to go grab it. It's just that characteristic, the willingness to want to have change, want to have a great life. And that comes from having struggle in my, with growing up. And I think it was just a part of me that knew there had to be another way to live life. And I just wanted to create a life for Ryan and I.
So that is like the warrior aspect in you, right?
Yes.
It's like a warrior. I'm disciplined. I really want this outcome. The why is so strong. Right?
Yes.
And probably a little bit of dysfunction on the unconscious level because you're trying to escape your childhood memories, right?
Yes.
So as an example, I know that Lou grew up in poverty and I know what happened in the family background. So this drive can set up dysfunction, which helped lead you to being sick later. But at the same time, it also helps you be super successful. So everyone needs a warrior. Warrior is the will, the discipline to continue to go for the vision, to have the goal. But I want to go to something else with you, right? Because I think I'm going to have to answer that question or help you answer that question.
Yeah, that would be great.
Right, okay. So, and this is going to work out really well because I've got Rachel Hunter come on soon and you'll start to see you guys have a similarity. Okay. When you learn something, okay, that really helps you, what do you tend to do once you've found out something that helps you?
As soon as something helps, I have to share it with somebody else.
Thank you. Great.
I have to.
Have to share it with someone else.
I cannot. If there's something great that's helped me, it's like, how can I help other people with this? And it is a huge drive for me.
Great. That's what I want to say. Good. I'm going to help you get there. So for everyone watching or listening to this, you can see that the altrusicness in Louise, that when she learns, so she has a teacher archetype. Okay. The teacher archetype must share to contribute to others. Why is contribution to others so important for you, Lou?
I'm not sure why. It's just important. It's just an aspect, I suppose, of who I am. And I don't like seeing people unhappy. If someone's unhappy, I want to make them happy. And I've always been like that, even as a little one. If I see someone unhappy, I'll do what I can to help them be happy.
Yeah, that's right. So just a question here, because I'm still digging into this question. What attributes help you build? What attributes, characteristics help you get as successful as you did? And you're starting to talk now about this intrinsic. It's just who you are, desire to serve from your teacher self with knowledge, or just to pass something on because you want other people to be happy. So can you see that one of your central value systems, one of your highest value systems is contribution and service?
Yes.
Right. Yes. So when you were working, even though you had your own personal goals for your business, how much of your energy was about service and helping others?
There was a couple of layers. Firstly, I wanted to make sure that this would serve myself and Ryan as a family, serve his future. That was very important because I had a very strong drive to be able to put him into a great school, which I did. I was able to get him into a top school and afford to pay to do that quite easily. But then there was the next layer. So it was layers of contribution. The next layer was I really wanted to help other women set themselves up financially through their own businesses so that so they could have that plan B, so to speak, so that they were strong. And
tell me about that. Yeah, I'd like you to dig into that. For those listening and watching, you're gonna meet Lou if you're watching any of my shows and her show, which I'll be co-hosting with her as well because we're doing things together. One of the things you'll learn about Lou is she is really about service, and you can probably already see that with that, right, with that desire for service. And I'm not going to ask Lou because she's probably too humble to answer this, but what happens when people are around Lou is they feel her love. They actually feel her care, and they feel her kindness, and they feel her genuineness. Now, interesting enough, because that's an absolutely bankable asset, right? Can you see, it's not like you set out to serve others for your own gain, but can you see it really has led to,
Yeah, and I help a lot of people, and people wouldn't know I help people.
No, because it's just who you are.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing is it doesn't need to be out there. Like I'm happy just to do that in the way and help. I try to help people to help themselves. That's a really big part as well. I want them to be strong. So that's knowledge, and sharing knowledge is very important for me.
Yeah. Are you a spiritual person, Lou?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
very much.
And how much of your desire to serve is from your spiritual self, would you say?
Yeah, I'd say that's it's a huge part of who I am. I feel very purposeful. I feel very much purpose when I'm doing that. Yes.
Yeah. Now I want to dig into something that you said before, right? I feel like Parkinson. I know an interviewer. It's one thing I'm practicing. I've spoken so much myself. I really want to learn to be able to really interview and let people have the space to breathe and share their goodies. Because we've got Rachel coming in, it's really important that we deal with this question. You'll see why as Rachel comes in. Right? Because again, you don't know anything about Rachel, right? You've helped a lot of women, and you said something before, like you want to help them with their business and financially. And you said it in a way, you said so that they can be strong. Why is that important to you?
Because I think, like we see now in society, we see what's happening in our world, and I can see those that have had a lot of the personal development and self-development is that they're kind of able to manage and find their way through and handle things. And I think that's the thing. Life's always going to throw something up somewhere. And the stronger we can be within ourselves and also our skills and really understanding ourselves, then no matter what happens, you know you can handle it. And I think that's a big thing around fear.
Yeah, just talking to that. I've had challenging few years because of a bunch of things, including my wife having cancer, and things that even happened through COVID in some of the other businesses that I'm involved with, property and things like that. And I've often reflected on my ability to handle it with, 99% of the time with aplomb, is based on all my personal development work over the years, the forging of an ability to sit in uncomfortable situations and not be too impacted by them. And you're right. So personal development makes you really resilient because you've really good quality personal development. Again, this is why I'm doing this show, so I can say anything I bloody well like. Really good quality personal development work is ego transcending, okay, where there's lower forms of personal development work, which is ego building. Ego transcending is a really, really important thing to do, because when you can have ego transcendence, your relationship with suffering changes. You're not a child anymore. You don't need to moan. You don't need to complain. You have a whole other way of dealing with suffering. Anyway, I want to get back to you and I'll get to Rachel, because you'll see right now. I'm going to bring Rachel in. I'm going to keep with this question. So, ladies and gentlemen, I am about to, and I'm new driving this equipment, so I hope I can bring you in. Yeah, look at that. Add to streams.
You're doing well, Mary.
Yeah.
Hi, Rachel.
Hey, Rachel.
Hello, nice to meet you. It's been lovely listening to your story.
Oh, thank you. It's great to meet you finally.
Yes.
There's a slight lag, Rachel, on your end by the look of it, but we'll give it a go. So you'll speak. I can see your lips moving, then the voice comes through, but we'll try this. So you guys are going to get on. You'll see why in a second. So just before we get into this, Rachel, she runs a broking company. She's and she's just been put into the finalists for the broker of the year, the female broker of the year. Come on, Rachel. What's the award?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you. Louise, I think it's the same thing. I think if you work your business with your why, and your why is to make other people happy, then at the end of that, you have success. It's almost a given.
Yes, I agree. And it does, yeah, you just feel fulfilled. You feel led and guided all the way. And yeah, it makes all the difference. I totally agree.
Rachel, you love working with the ladies, and you love working with the ladies for a reason. And so when you're working with the ladies, your main aim is to help them be strong financially, isn't it?
Yeah, I think we get taught a lot of things at school that we need, but one of the things that we don't seem to get enough of is financial literacy. And when I look at, and I specialise in financial recovery after divorce and separation, I specifically chose that because I'd done counselling and just saw time and time and time again that women would go through a divorce. They were terrified about whether or not they'd have a home. They didn't know how they were going to manage. And it wasn't because they didn't have the capacity, it's because they didn't have the knowledge or the comprehension. And sometimes just having someone say, look, we can do this, you know, it might not look the way you'd originally expected, or it might not be what you'd thought, but we can help you recover financially by using lots of different tactics.
And if you, Rachel, if you go into, not so much that I understand you work with them financial literacy and you're helping them get loans, you're helping them, because, you know, in our past conversations, you said a lot of ladies feel ashamed that they don't know because they've just handed the money stuff over to the man. And you'll start to see, well, hey, this is where you and Louise are going to really get on, because I've had similar conversations with Louise. Part of why she was in business was to help women become financially empowered, because of the same thing, because so many women in their 40s and 50s and stuck in unhappy marriages and they can't leave because they feel too scared financially and what have you. Rachel, where are you trying to get your clients to psychologically? Because if I hear what you're doing, right, you're helping them you're giving them information, and you're helping them with loans, you're helping them sort out their financial affairs. But the bottom line of that is, outside of what's happening for money in their purse, as an example, and money in their bank, you're trying to work with them on a psychological level. You're trying to get them to a place psychologically, aren't you?
Definitely. And also the flow-on effect that has for their children. Just like Louise said, she was really wanting to protect her son and to give him the life that she, you know, envisaged he was entitled to. So many women just don't know that they can do it, but there are so many ways they can. And most of the time they just need someone to believe in them. Most of the time they need someone to say, look, let's do this together. I'll hold your hand through the process, whether it's going to an auction and helping them bid at an auction because they've never done it before, or whether it's sitting down and working through a budget. A lot of the time, the thing that's scaring them is what they don't know, rather than something that they genuinely need to be scared of.
Yeah. And I think it's wonderful what you're doing, Rachel, as well. Sorry, I was having a bit of a coughing fit in the middle of all. I was trying not to. I was having a coughing fit inside.
You did that well. You suppressed it well.
I was just thinking, oh, how to hold this. But no, I love what you're doing. And a couple of words you said, you know, you've got this. And that's such a big thing, is knowing that you've got someone to help you through that. And that wasn't something that I had. And I felt that shame. I felt huge shame. One, because I never in a million years thought I would end up divorced. Like, that was like, how could this happen? And then coming back from a country, being in your early 40s and having to start all over again. And but it was hard because you've got family there that could help in a way, but you need someone like yourself that is still slightly removed from it as well, to say, hey, you've got this and you've got a plan. And it's a wonderful thing that you're doing.
By the way, can you see that you both play similar roles? Can you see that you both have similar? Yeah.
I think too, when you look at the last few years of people before they get divorced, they've lost a lot of confidence, and there's a lot of fear there. So it's the most beautiful part is, you know, they come in, they're like deers in headlights, literally and metaphorically, and watching over that 12-month period for them to regrow and to rejuvenate themselves and to re-transform their identities, because they lost a lot of that with the pain that they were going through just to get to the end of the divorce. And that's just having someone say, look, I'm okay now. You know, the kids can see I'm okay now. We're happier. We're talking to each other, whatever it may be. Divorce with dignity is probably the thing that I think we should all aim for if we have to go there.
Yeah.
Rachel, what would you consider, like obviously you've been very successful at what you do and getting more successful after COVID, because COVID's been kind to you.
Yes.
Isn't it? You're full on right now, aren't you? Your whole team are full on, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've seen a 380% increase in business as a result of COVID. We generally have quite busy January, February, because when you put people together for a long time over Christmas and then take money off them, it inevitably sort of opens up the cracks, and COVID's doing the same thing.
Yeah. So, Rachel, I'm going to ask you, I'm similar in the same way as I was trying to do this with Louise. I want to reverse engineer you in the sense of, you know, you have a high strike rate. If a client meets you, your conversions are huge, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Why are they huge? What is it about you, Rachel, that converts prospects to clients?
I think listening to their story and helping them dig down into their story to find the thing that they want back, because a lot of the time it's confidence, or it's a bit of financial security, or it's knowledge, but just having empathy. I mean, if you come to someone and there's no ego involved and all you're doing is connecting, then you can help find out what it is they're after.
So, Rachel, I want to dig into something in a second that you and I have communicated about before, about, you know, it's a male industry typically that you work in, right? We're going to get to that. But can you see, isn't it interesting that, you know, you and Lou, you've actually built your business success from your hearts, if you actually look at it. The fact that people respond to you, and I can tell you why they respond to you. So as soon as you listen and you've got empathy, that means that you're not judgmental. Your walls aren't up. That they feel your heart. And once they feel your heart, they feel safe. And isn't that amazing? Because that's good sales, right? And I used to say this for years, like, you know, and for those that don't know, I used to be I'd be training worldwide selling marketing and I'd work with all their top salon owners, but I'd have to go and do staff trainings as well for them. I'd have to go and use my people reading abilities to find out why their team weren't selling. Anyway, there's all sorts of unconscious belief systems about selling. You know, like, oh, people won't like me if I'm selling, and salespeople are evil and horrible and greedy. And so people walk around with these happening in their unconscious, so they don't want to sell. It's like they don't even know that they've got these belief systems. But in reality, good selling is service. Good selling is love. How can I help this person? What is the best way I can help them? Now, if I'm doing someone's hair, which I'm not, because I work with business owners, you know, and they've got really dry hair, my way of serving is say, listen, you need to get this product. It's a bit more expensive than that one, but it's you're going to get rid of this problem and you're going to feel beautiful and attractive, right? So selling is loving when it's done properly. And so both of you really hold that heartfelt aspect which people pick up on. But I want to go to something else here with this. So I think we probably all agree with that, wouldn't we? That it's the heart that sells.
It is, and Rachel, you said a key word there as well, and that Perry, you said that, which you can see radiates from Rachel is it's non-judgmental, and that's what I felt is that, you know, when you're working with people, you're listening to their story, where sometimes when some people are talking and sharing that vulnerability and where they're at, that other person can feel if they're judging them on that vulnerability, before they tend to, whereas if you just hear people's story and you're not judging that story within you, that's what I think the magic would be around something like that. Would you agree, Perry?
Oh, totally that. And here's a reason for it. It's such a good thing that you've stopped me from carrying on to where I wanted to go to, because this is a really important point. Most of the world, you actually have to have a certain state of consciousness to do what you're both talking about. Okay, so as an example, and I have a similar thing, I'm not a judgmental person. And I'm not a judgmental person because I've accepted pretty much everything within myself. Okay, I've had far from a perfect life. I've lived a life with extreme polarities, and so I've seen it all, right? I shouldn't say I've seen it all, but I have seen a lot, and I've seen a lot of the dark side. So what happens is that when you have reached a certain state of compassion and forgiveness yourself, you then look at others and you have the same compassion and forgiveness for them. And so for most people, they've not experienced that, because you got to remember, and I don't know what the percentage is, I'm just chucking this out here. Don't hold me to the science of it. You know I love science, but it's like if 80% of the world or 90% of the world is still walking around in judgment. And so people feel it. And so someone's revealing a story to someone, and the person appears to be listening, but you can see they're just in their head, and they're not really there with you. You two, correct. Well, you two people feel that you're with them, and therefore they feel safe. So this just takes you to the know, like, and trust you stage in the client acquisition process. So as I said before, you don't set out, both of you don't set out to be loving and kind to make your money.
What I think, Perry, is that you've got to want to do it, not have to do it. If you're doing it because you have to do it, the outcome's very different. If you're doing it because you get up and go, I've got these 3 clients today, I know that this one and this one really need an hour of my time, I want to get them to this place by the time we finish that meeting, and you're doing it because you want to do it, not because you have to do it, it's so much more fun, and the connection is there. It's just natural, and it just happens.
Very wise. Okay, I'm aware of time. I've got another question for you, Rachel. So here you were, ex-counsellor, big-hearted counsellor, get into finance, want to help the women that are struggling and empower them. By the way, I want you to go and do way more. How many young girls at the age of 15 or 16 need to be trained by you, Rachel, in managing money so they can become empowered women? Anyway, we'll park that. Yeah. Question. We're of time. Okay. I wanted to do our own podcast, Louise. Anyway, the working in a man's world. So you came from counselling, and I've been around brokers and financial people all my life, and they're very different to you. Right? How did you feel coming into such a masculine environment? And even the ladies that work in that environment tend to go on the logic, masculine side.
In the first 6 to 12 months, I had 2 or 3 different people say, you're not going to do it, you can't make this, you're not going to do it. And my grandfather had said to me when I started a degree, he said, you won't finish this. And it was the only thing he needed to say, because straight away I had to finish it. And when I had the people that I was working with mentoring me say, yeah, you can't do this, because I'd gone to see a client and my philosophy was, why refinance them if they're not going to be in a better position in the next 12 months? And I'd come back to the office and they're like, look, this isn't a charity, just refinance them. If there's a deal to be done, just do it. And I quit and I went out on my own, because I thought, I do want to do this, but I don't want to do it your way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Was it challenging?
Yeah.
Working in the male world, and what were the challenges you experienced?
Ego. There's a lot of ego, and the funny thing is, I don't think that the best brokers are actually the ones that are best with numbers. I think they're the ones that are best with people, and the ones that have the best team around them. I knew pretty quickly I have zero attention to detail. I am terrible at inputting data. So the minute I was able to, I found someone that could do that for me, because if I'm doing something I don't want to do, I'm not doing the best I can. And just finding the skilled people and the people that aligned with values and working with them. And I think the other thing is being really nice to credit assessors, because they're considered, the demons in our world, and they're not. They're just people trying to do a job and get paid. So just being kind and appreciative has been all I've needed to do, really, and work hard. Yeah, you've got to do that too.
Great. Yeah.
But
Lou, do you have any questions?
isn't it, Rachel, when you're working hard, but it doesn't feel like work because it's connected to your why and it's connected to your heart, and that's the difference, because we've got this thing where people are working really hard at what they don't like to do, and that really causes so many problems. But we can work as much as we like when it's something that we're just lights us up and actually energizes us rather than depletes us.
But had I not gone and gotten a PA that was really good at detail, I don't think I'd still be doing it, because it stopped being fun. And I think I come to work now and I look back up and it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon and I'm like, where's the day gone? It's been amazing. And it's not always easy. And, I hate telling someone that they've been declined, but I always try and give them a solution, not the problem. And, life is, as you said, Lou, every one of us goes through that moment, and you just need someone that will help you find a way through.
Yeah.
So ladies and gentlemen, a couple of real gems there from Lou and Rachel. The first one being work in your gifts, your strengths, and the things that you love. Okay, now, and then if you've got weaknesses, which you all have, and then you delegate to people that are really strong where you're weak and gifted where you're weak. And so what happens, and we'll probably close on this, ladies, but it's like what happens is you actually have an entire team working in their joy juice, doing what they're designed to. We're just finishing off a profiling system at this moment in time. I think you've done our profiling system at some stage, Rachel. We're redoing it, and that's for this purpose, so that entrepreneurs can be working in their gifts, their genius, their strengths, and staff working in gifts, genius, and strengths. But I want to tell you something really funny, Louise and Rachel, and this comes back to something you said earlier, Lou. People pride themselves. We talked about that John Wayne sort of archetype. Look how hard I'm working. Look, I'm struggling. I'm really struggling, and it's hard work, and I just feel so good because of that. Right? I must be doing something right. Most people are unconsciously wired. Think about this: not to have fun.
Yes.
At work, it's actually a wiring, because both of you have just said the gem. You just said it, Rachel. I just do what I love and what I'm good at, and I give the stuff I don't like to someone that loves doing that and is good at it. It's so easy, but most people will never do it because they're wired to suffer. Anyway, Rachel, how do people find you?
Through Facebook, through my website. Yeah, they most of the time I'd say
what's your company name? I know. I'm going to get you to say. What's your company name?
Argentium Finances.
How do you spell that?
Argentium. It's the Latin word for silver, and I come from the white pages, so it's A in the white pages. So that's one of the other reasons that I chose it. No longer relevant, but yeah, it made sense to me.
Good on you. Good on you. Any gems that you want to share with viewers before they leave? And I'll get you on some other time, Rachel. It's been really good. Any gems, Rachel?
The biggest thing I'm seeing through COVID is protect your credit score. I've seen a lot of people that are actually quite well equipped financially. They haven't taken notice of that, and it's now really heavily impacting their choices. So, credit.
You told me something like if a telephone bill's not paid within 48 hours or some ridiculous stuff now, you get a bad credit rating.
That's right. In 2018, in June, we in Australia created comprehensive credit reporting, and we're now much more Americanized. If you have a really good credit score, you're going to get a low interest rate. If you have a poor credit score, you're going to get a much higher interest rate. So protect that credit score.
Great, thank you. Lou, everyone that's watching this show right now is going to meet you next week, because you're going to be back with me co-hosting. I won't be interviewing. I am going to interview you some more. There's more to pull out there. Any tips or gems that you'd like to share with the audience before we depart? Anything that's...
Well, I think after, this is such a brilliant show, and you've just said some great things, Rachel, some really good things, which I'm sure it's really given people some ideas or I think, and everything that you're doing, Perry, as well, like you say, this brings up things that we start to process unconsciously. And I think this is a wonderful time just to grab a cup of tea, grab your journal and write down some insights that came up for you from the show and be able to act on them, because that's your intuition. And that's the thing that can be quite fleeting too, if you don't capture it. So to write down those insights so that you can act on them later. And I loved everything you said, Rach. I love to be able to refer you to so many people. I think it's wonderful what you're doing.
Yeah, we'll get her on there.
Nice to meet you, Lou. It really
Yeah, we'll get her on Reset Revolution.
We
show.
will. We will. You bet.
We'll get her lighting sorted out a little bit. Great. Thanks so much, everybody. By the way, if you like the show, as you know, it's for members. So just send them to perrymardon.com and they can sign up and everyone gets access to it. Thanks, everyone. Thanks so much.
Bye. Have a great week.
See ya.